If you are a fan of World War II and stories of inspiration and courage and a fair amount of tragedy as well, then today's book just might be for you. Today, I'll be reviewing The Immortals by Stephen T. Collis. Welcome to Spencer Reads Everything. I'm your host, Spencer Duncan, and today we're going over a book that came out in 2021. I'm doing several books by this author because I actually knew him when I was in high school. He was a youth leader of mine, and he's now come out with, I think, 4 or 5 books. I have read in just the last couple of months, I think 4 by him. And I've really enjoyed all of his books that I have read so far, and I certainly look forward to him writing some more. Several of them are based in history. He has at least one fiction book entirely, and then he has one book that just came out last year that deals much more with how we as a people can, mitigate our differences and find a way to be peacemakers. And I will be hopefully reviewing all of those, but I wanted to start out with the one that I just most recently finished, which is The Immortals. Now, just to give you a quick synopsis of The Immortals, I will give you the Goodreads summary. It says, during World War II, 4 chaplains were assigned to the SS Dorchester with more than 900 men on board. Alexander Good, a Jewish rabbi, John Washington, a Catholic priest, George Fox, a Methodist minister, and Clark Poling, a Baptist minister, all offered comfort, reassurances, and prayers, along with a warning from the captain that a German submarine was hunting their convoy. Thoroughly researched and told in an engrossing nonfiction narrative, this true story alternates between accounts told from the perspective of the Nazi U-boat captain and his crew, as found in their journals and later interviews, and survivors from the Dorchester who credit the 4 chaplains with saving their lives after the ship was torpedoed. The celebrated story of the men who became known as the Immortal Chaplains is now joined for the first time in print by the largely untold story of another hero, Charles Walter David Jr., a young black petty officer aboard a Coast Guard cutter traveling with the Dorchester. Charles bravely dived into the glacial water over and over again, even with hypothermia setting in, to try to rescue those the chaplains had inspired to never give up. And then, as a little ending, Goodreads says, page-turning and inspiring, The Immortals explores the power of both faith and sacrifice and powerfully narrates the lives of 5 heroic men who believed in something greater than themselves, giving their all for people of vastly different beliefs and backgrounds. I think that's an incredibly succinct and very appropriate summary for this book. It does give you a fair amount of background for each of the chaplains. It appears that there was a fair amount of information that was available for each of them, and it is all in there, and you find them very impressive and relatable characters, and you will find it a heartbreaking story in some regards. I should tell you now, just this is a bit of a spoiler, but the reason they are immortalized is because all of them did lose their lives with the sinking of the Dorchester. A lot of people lost their lives. It was one of the worst maritime tragedies for the United States during World War II. It lost, they give a number near the end of the book, I want to say nearly a third or a quarter of the same amount of people that were lost in all of the fighting in Pearl Harbor. And it was just a devastating loss. And so for that reason, I think you should know that now. If you are hoping to find some good feel-good story in this, that's not the type of feel-good story you're going to find. I certainly think that there is an element of hope and something very inspirational that I think anyone could take away from this. However, you do have to come into it with an understanding that this is a moment of sacrifice. And it's not just because America was at war, and so of the 900 people on board, many died, therefore it's a sacrifice. No, this is a sacrifice because these are individuals that made decisions to join the military. Many of them actually did not need to. There were a couple that had wavered between whether they wanted to join and actually fight or whether they wanted to be a chaplain. They felt like being a chaplain just may not be doing their part. And it was pointed out to at least one of them by their father that actually chaplains suffered some of the highest rates of mortality. He said something along the lines of, you'll discover that you will get shot at just as much as everyone else. You just don't have the prerogative to shoot back. And I think that is I think that's something that you have to keep in mind when you see the inspiration of these characters. And on top of that, here in their final moments, as they're dealing with this horrible tragedy and as they're dealing with the ship that is sinking, the decisions they are continuing to make to help those around them. And the book just gives, it's full of these little vignettes. I mean, it obviously you have this horrible tragic backdrop of all these people dying. They are in frigid water, so even those that do get off of the ship, many of them are going to die quite quickly just from exposure and hypothermia. And so there's so much that is just awful. Yet even in this moment of terrible death and destruction, you have individuals that are making decisions to save other people's lives. And that's the inspiration that you're just going to get from this if you pick it up. And I think it's incredibly well written. I don't always love books about war. I feel like there's an overabundance of books and movies about World War II in particular. I understand that for some people there's a certain interest and a certain appeal, and I'm not, I'm not here to knock on all of them, but I certainly do think that it can be overdone. And I think this is an example of something that it's giving a very thorough look into something about war and conflict beyond the bravery or gravitas or the heroics of people that are successful in some kind of campaign. Instead, this is showing you one of the elements of war that is just mind-numbingly frustrating. The amount of people that will die and don't even get a chance to defend themselves, don't even get a chance to have a full justification of why they're even in this war. But because of the consequences of nation states going to war, hundreds and thousands of individuals will die. And even with that as your understanding, you can certainly still find individuals that are an inspiration and individuals that make decisions that make it worth learning more about not just that conflict, but about this individual moment, and especially about this ship. It was just a transport ship. It had one job, and in the process, it's going to be a byword now for one of the worst moments in American maritime military history, and I think that that's something worth remembering. I will say that it's not just the story of these chaplains, although I found them to be absolutely inspiring figures in of themselves. The book actually starts out, as that synopsis said, pointing out somebody else that wasn't even on the Dorchester originally. He was actually on one of the cutters that came to pick up as many of the survivors as possible, and it's how the book starts out, is by telling you who this individual is and what he is doing as he is trying to help get people out of the water at great risk to his own life, even though it was not something that he necessarily had to do. And I think that that was really important too, because it was trying to show something beyond just men of the cloth making a decision to be of assistance to men in arms, but it was someone who in his life had already witnessed plenty of injustices just because of the color of his skin. Yet, in this moment, he is choosing to ignore that, or choosing to not let that be the defining feature of the United States military or of the United States as a whole, and is willing to make an incredible sacrifice. And so I thought it was a wonderful addition that Professor Collis chose to include, and it's something that certainly emphasizes the type of inspiration that he is trying to evoke with this story that he is telling. So who is this book for? Well, like I said, at the heart of it is an incredible tragedy, and so it is only going to be for people that can understand that going into this and can understand the immense amount of life that is a byproduct of telling this story, including, unfortunately, the main characters. It is also for people that can handle that and want the inspiration that is being written into this story, and understanding why they're referred to as the immortal chaplains and why they are such important figures in the telling of World War II history, especially in this particular sense. It is also going to be for people that are interested in World War II, at least to a certain extent. There's a lot about the background of what led to World War II, what is going on during World War II. There's certainly a lot of those different elements that you have to have a certain appreciation for to really get the most out of this book. And I think that's really helpful for all the most important contextualization reasons. However, that being said, on the flip side, who is this book not for? I would say it is not for history buffs or war historians that are looking for that more heroic element of fighting a campaign and winning against all odds. No, I'm telling you now that that's not the type of inspiration you're going to get from this. So if you are someone that reads about war and conflict for those reasons, then you're probably not going to enjoy this. But like I said, I think that there is even greater inspiration that can be found in the purpose of telling this story. And so I would strongly encourage anyone that can appreciate or can already have some contextualization and take that contextualization into better understanding the story that's being told. I think that you will get an immense amount out of this. And like I said, I think that the quality of writing is very good. I think that the author managed to weave together a whole bunch of narratives in a way that kept me turning the pages, and certainly wanted me to know what was going to happen next. Even though I knew what was going to end up happening to these main characters, I still just wanted to keep reading. There was at no moment a lack of desire to go on, because I knew it'd just be so sad, because the way he was writing was, first of all, engaging, and second of all, it certainly gave this sense of there is still something to be learned here, even if you know that it's an incredible tragedy that you're learning about. So for that reason, I would recommend this to most people that can appreciate that and aren't looking for just some kind of shoot 'em up World War II book. But of course, I would certainly love to hear what you guys have to say about this book. Please let me know in the comments your thoughts on this book in particular, or if you have others similar books that you would recommend. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those notifications, and until next time, keep those pages turning.